My guests today are Allie Condrath and Jake Mann, and they are part of Dinner for One, a comedy collective and writing team along with Ian Wexler and Kyle Miller. Now, the team writes and produces all projects in-house, ranging from indie television to short films, digital content, and live sketch comedy. Now, they've performed at the TBS New York Comedy Festival, Upright Citizens Brigade, and headlined sketch festivals across the U.S. Now, Dinner for One has been praised as the funniest, most inventive sketch troupe in the New York comedy scene. Now, their newest short film, Fourth Dementia, received the Grand Jury Prize for Best Screenplay at Flicker's Rhode Island Festival and continues its run screening at Oscar-qualifying festivals like HollyShorts and all over the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the comedy duo of Allie Condrath and Jake Mann from the Dinner for One comedy team and their amazing new short film, Fourth Dementia, to the show. Welcome, Allie and Jake.
Hi, wow. That sounded so
Lord,
good.
What a stunning introduction.
You're gonna sound awesome.
It's like you've done this before. that was. I feel like I'm having imposter syndrome right now. Like those are our credits.
Pretty good.
Oh my god! Wow.
Well, not too bad.
Well, I will say this. I had the opportunity to not only watch your film when it was at HollyShorts, I got to watch it again and again and again to really understand this. I mean, in all seriousness, this short film is really a breath of fresh air when it comes to comedy. So I have to ask, why a comedy about Alzheimer's?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. It is a dense 16 minutes. There's a lot that happens in a short amount of time. We keep calling it our little epic film because it's just, there's 30 actors, 8 different scenarios in 16 minutes with a crew of 65. It was huge. It was
able to jam a feature film into 16 minutes.
A tiny little thing.
Yes, but I'm really happy that it worked.
I think we have always, we come from a live sketch comedy background. And so we always have felt like tragedy plus time equals comedy. And all of us have gone through a family member having Alzheimer's.
Or dementia.
Yeah. And because of that, we were like, there's something very funny about this process as well while you're going through it. Yes, it's heartbreaking, but there is some humor and levity in it as well. And no one's told that story yet. So we thought, why not? And why not give an opportunity for an older actress to like show her stuff?
Yeah, and I'd like to add, I feel like there's a lot of content about Alzheimer's and dementia and mental illness and diseases, and they're often void of comedy, and that just isn't life. That's never how life works. It feels like it's dodging the humor out of respect, but really, I think it's maybe disrespectful to not try to encapsulate the various things that are associated with either being a family member coping with a loved one who is suffering from dementia, or the experience of being afflicted with a disease like this, and the humor that comes out of that. It's inevitable. I remember when my maternal grandfather with completely uncontrolled diabetes was dealing with his own dementia and was convinced that he was a drug mule for foreign prostitutes, and was insisting that the women were in his apartment. And
wasn't your dad like a spy? He thought your dad was a spy or a Russian spy or something. Every time his dad would come into the home, he would be like, "What news do you have for me?"
Gustav, there you are. We must discuss plans.
His family would play along, and we were like, we could do that, and hence the Jewish mafia in our scene.
Yes, true. The variety of scenes. We felt like this was also a vehicle that lended itself to our bread and butter, which is sketch comedy. We were able to, produce same room, completely transforming the decor and the furniture and the costumes.
8 different sketches.
Yes, exactly. 8 different sketches with one cohesive arc.
Well, I agree with you. I look at, they say laughter is the best medicine. And why not tackle a subject like this one using comedy? Because it's not making fun of the one that's suffering. in a way, it also helps to bring a little bit of joy and lighten the mood for the caregivers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been the coolest thing about finally showing the film to people, is so many people who have been afflicted with this or have family members who have been afflicted with this, and then being like, it was nice to laugh about it. It was nice to see the humorous sides that we feel like we can't talk about. And there is some sadness in there, and it's a weird short because at the end you do kind of get teary-eyed and cry, but it's from a place of feeling like Nellie's found her home, which is nice. And I think every person who's experienced a family member with Alzheimer's is hoping that their person finds that.
Well, where did the title Fourth Dementia come from?
Honestly, I think it was Ian. So
Ian Wexler.
Yeah, Ian is our director and he's a writer. The four of us actually write in a room all together. So we like put our laptop on the computer and we riff and improvise until we come up with something. And that kid's brain is crazy cool, and we love a good pun. We're very punny, and he was like, okay, if we're dealing with time, the whole point was that they're moving through different dimensions in time, and originally it was supposed to be more sci-fi than it ended up being, which is where Fourth Dementia came.
Yeah.
Well, what were some of the challenges that you had while writing a script based on Alzheimer's?
I mean, going back to Ian Wexler.
Blame it on Ian.
Well,
he's not here, so we can blame it on Ian.
He's a visionary.
Yeah.
He is a very particular person. Often our dynamic feels like Kyle, Allie, and myself coming up with just a wealth of ideas. And Ian is very good at sussing out whether something is going to serve a given project or not, and basically auditioning things for him. So sometimes we have days where, we're only given duds and we're demoralized.
But I will say, we wrote this for about a year and a half. There are like 3 different iterations of Fourth Dementia. And it originally started as a TV series idea. We were pitching TV shows, and we thought this would be a great outlet for someone like a Lily Tomlin, or let's write something. It was right when Hacks came out, and we were like, maybe let's write something for a comedian. And when we started pitching it, no one could comprehend the concept. They were like, a comedy about Alzheimer's? That sounds inappropriate. And we realized the only way to do it was to actually make it and show people what we meant. And so, I mean, original iterations had, like we were saying, a dog, a talking dog. There were parts, there was a sex scene in the first iteration we made.
Yes,
remember?
The film originally ended with a crude sex joke. Tonally, this has changed, gone through many iterations.
And as we've done read-throughs with other people in our comedy troupe and other people we respect in the comedy world, and talking to people who've really gone through a parent having this, it's really changed. It's a totally different film than it was a year and a half ago.
And having this kind of journey, just working on a script for this long, it really helps you get to the bottom of what this is, kind of discovering the log line in a more like thorough way, being able to identify, okay, this is a story.
How's it serving the
about
story?
Yes, I mean, this is grandma. If grandma is living at an assisted living facility and she keeps being visited by different families who all insist that she is their mother, that she is their matriarch, that she is somebody's nana, and she has never met these people before. How did she adapt
to that? Yeah.
Because it's from her perspective.
And I will tell you, the first iteration was a lot of her being like, where am I? Who is that? What's going on? Right. We're like, we can't do that for 16 minutes. She's got to adapt and figure it out. Like, if she's been living this life for however long, she's got to learn to adapt. And that was kind of how...
I mean, after I watched this film multiple times, I kept thinking, I said, there's something about this film. I said, what is it? What is it? And then it dawned on me, and I agree with you. This film is a perfect television series because because with an assisted living location or set, you have multiple characters. You have storylines and dialogue that would be literally off the charts. You would never run out of content.
Not only that, we had ideas of, we always kind of we love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and we were like, we could totally make it something similar to that. And she ends up finding someone else in the nursing home who's going through her same experience, and how do they deal with it together. And maybe we had a nurse character for at least a year who was like her guide, her spirit guide, who was helping her through this journey. So we have so many ideas where this could go.
I would
Yeah.
go
So
with but for me, when I watch it, I kept thinking, okay, what kind of comedy would you compare this to if you were doing a television series? And I'd go the Seinfeld route because
Big fan of Seinfeld.
because then that way everybody has their favorite characters. But the great thing about, I hate to say great thing about Dementia because there's no great thing about Dementia, but with comedy though, the storylines would be and the dialogue would be so hilarious because it'd almost be Abbott and Costello type of thing.
mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing. You can reset every time, which is great. You
Right.
you never have to stick to one thing.
Yes, which
Yeah.
definitely lends itself to some vaudeville action, some really neat, tidy plot lines that all
Which is
converge,
kind of
like Seinfeld.
weirdly where we come from.
That's
Even though
our
we're like
big
kids of the
influences.
'90s, we were really you were really into Sid Caesar growing up.
Marx Brothers.
Yeah. Monty Python is kind of where a lot of early SNL, like '75, Gilda and John Belushi stuff. So like that was always the direction we were hoping.
Yeah, I mean, you could even have you could even have a Don Rickles type character, and
100%.
yeah, and I mean, of course, you may have a doctor on staff, you got a couple of nurses, you got some orderlies. I mean, even if a cafeteria worker in the assisted living, I mean, literally, you would never run out of content. But I have to ask. How in the world did you come to cast A-list actors like Caroline Aaron and Bill Irwin in this film?
Yeah.
I'm going to defer to you.
So
Star producer.
Yeah, I just when we wrote this, we thought we needed someone who was a name to help sell this idea. And I just started emailing every single actor I could think of. And Caroline and Bill were really on the top of our list because we're from New York. They're New York actors and New York theater actors. And I just emailed them. I literally just like, people tell you just to do it because the worst thing that can happen is they say no. And that's literally what I did. I emailed them the script, I emailed them an offer, and they both took a liking to what we wrote, which was really, really cool for us to have these people like the words that we put on the page. And I think the script is what lended itself to them coming on.
It did feel like a situation where stars aligned, where we had people on our dream lists say yes, where the timing of the actors strike.
It was right before the actors strike that we shot, like literally a week before, I think.
I think it starts with solid writing, though. I think there's something very confidence inspiring for people, for established names like Bill and Caroline, who don't know us, to come on based on an effective story being told and being able to connect with writing.
But to any filmmaker, I would say, like, just do it and you figure it out along the way. We had to learn about contracts and how to talk to an agent. We had all these things we had never done before that we were just kind of figuring it out as we went along. And the more we learned, the easier it got. So that by the time we got Bill on board, we were like, oh, we know how to do this. This is fine.
Yeah, there is a fair
sign here, do this, do that. Great. And they were both, they lended their time to us. We were doing Zoom rehearsals. We only had 3 days to shoot this whole film.
Wait. You only had 3 days to film Fourth Dementia. I was sitting there watching it and I kept trying to count how many different scenes. I'm looking at all of the different costume changes. And I'm thinking, my gosh, this is probably, I've seen so much film, but on a short film, this one was jammed packed with so much to look at and to consider. I cannot believe you pulled it off in 3 days.
It was a
We can't. We don't know
madhouse.
how we did it either, but it was a lot of planning. I mean, we had it scheduled down to a T, and there are videos. Hopefully, one day we'll put them out somewhere of us figuring out all those transitions beforehand and camera blocking them so we could go in, kind of put Caroline in and be like, go here, do this, and we got it. So it was a lot of pre-planning. There were about 65 people on set, and we rented out a rectory, and we shot in one room. So we're changing the design of the room twice a day.
It's not like we have multiple rooms to be able to dress as the different dimensions either. It's the same room. Sometimes half of the room is dressed for dimension C, and then we have to go back to dimension A for some whatever reason, and figuring out how to transition between them and where the camera is going to be. So what part of the room we can show, dictates what the production designer can transform it into.
What was great is we had a team who were so dedicated to
we are blessed
the concept that like people who were like our lighting guy, our gaffer, our grip, they were helping us with set production design. We were, as producers and writers and actors in the film, we were literally moving couches in between. Like, no one had just their one role they did. Everyone was so willing and eager to make sure it happened.
No one was of the attitude, well, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I think we kind of set the precedent for
even Caroline and Bill to that effect. Yeah.
Well, did you do a storyboard, or did you just go by a shot list?
So it was Ian and our DP Dan Finlayson. We all went to school together, so there's already this language. I think we all met the first day of college, and it kind of just stuck. And so I think that they didn't storyboard. They shot listed.
They got lost in the weeds late into the night.
They loved
for countless nights of just going off, exploring them too. It was I was not privy to a lot of
language, but it was a little bit like nerdy. Like no, I was gonna say like DP porn. Like they were just like really. It was like, okay, and then what shot could we do here? Oh yeah, that would be good. That would be so good. They were like really into it.
Oh, yeah. I go back to nerdy. They were able to dork out completely and just like go down the back roads of where this thing could possibly go. So by the time we got to production, they were on a whole different wavelength that we weren't even, fully aware of, but it worked out. We were along for the ride, and we were, using our improvisation skills and going, yes, and this, and how can we be supportive? How can we execute this? How can we wrangle these 25, 30 actors and make this a smooth experience where people are having a good time? So, all of that. It felt magical.
I love the backstory of how films are created, and some of them are just incredible to hear. And this one is one of those. And I love the fact, too, that this was also a production learning experience for everybody. Because like you said, you've never dealt with big actors and have to deal with the agents and the contracts. And a lot of people think that when they see a film of this caliber, which is extremely high, when people look at it, they just think, oh, yeah, everything went together. It was all great, but they don't realize that all of us, we don't know everything. And when it comes to film, you're always learning.
You're always learning.
I feel like a fraud so often in my everyday life. And with this, when the stakes are high, when you have a budget, when you have people who believe in you, you have, a lot of people A-list actors that are signing on to do this, you kind of have to operate as if you are a well-seasoned cast iron skillet in the space, and you know exactly what you're doing. This is not your first rodeo, and you're prepared for all of the curveballs that are coming at you. And then you have this secret that you don't know what you're doing at all.
Yeah,
but
post-production, it's post-production that makes everybody look like a genius.
Oh my God,
that's 80% of it. It really
and we had a great post-production team, and Ian edits our films.
It's true.
So our director is on the cutting room, like
to have the creator and the director, and the writer who's heavily involved to also be handling the editing process.
But because we're this four-headed dragon, by the end of it, Caroline was calling us the brain. She's like, I can't talk to all of them unless they're all here. Like, we can't make a decision unless all 4 of these guys are here. Because she knew that the 4 of us were able to collaborate together to make the best decision. If it was just one of us, it wouldn't come out the way it did. And that's how we are in the editing room too. We were how many hours and like arguments, nice arguments, but arguments about what to cut and how and when. I mean, the movie was at one point a 27-minute movie.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. Because see, to me, the sweet spot for a short film is 14 to 16. You know, when it gets
We
to be
tried to get to
19,
12.
you know, I'm cool
Right.
if it's at 19, but when it goes over the 20 mark, I'm like,
Is this a short?
yeah, no, yeah, it's more like, is this a half hour sitcom? Is when we get over the 20. But I want to talk about the film itself, because the opening scene where everyone is gathered together to celebrate Nellie's birthday, you nailed this scene, because the different reactions of everyone in the room when they're dealing with a member of a family member with dementia. One wants to go with the flow, meaning they want peace between the family and the patient. But then there's always that one that wants to correct the memories, which was you, Allie. and this creates this tug of war of correcting the one with the dementia versus just let it go, because in the end, whatever the patient says, it really doesn't matter. But it shows this one scene perfectly showed the struggle between family members and even caregivers and what they deal with on a daily basis. So it was a brilliant scene.
Thank you.
It felt like
it was also
familiar
like 5
territory.
minutes longer than what it is in the film, which is wild.
Right.
The original idea was to make the audience think that this is the whole film, that the film is only taking place with this family, and then to kind of switch it off, like flip it on its head, and she goes down the rabbit hole. But we found that we were losing people if we kept it on too long. We needed to like find that sweet spot. But I think ultimately we wanted to show, I know with my grandmother, she lived with us, my great grandmother lived with us when she was going through Alzheimer's. And my mom was me. Every time she would say something, my mom would correct her. And so I was like, that feels, when we wrote the film, I was like, I think that's an important person to have, because it's coming from a place of love. It's just not helping.
And see, all right, and see, you said it, because not helping, when people think that they're going to correct the memory of someone, they think they're actually helping, because they think they're helping that person to remember the correct facts, but they don't understand how Alzheimer's actually works. And so in this film, you show, I mean, I kept watching it really closely, because I'm thinking, you showed every element that I could even think of that a caregiver or a family member would go through, as well as Nellie's character, everything that an Alzheimer's patient would go through. They're here, they're lucid, but then all of a sudden, very quickly, they end up, maybe they don't know the people around them are their family. And or like you had said, your grandfather had these I guess I'd almost want to call them hallucinations, because in a way in this film
They
you had
thought it was
various
real.
yeah. And they believe that they are truly real.
And I think that's where the whole concept came out of, was this idea of, what if it's what did we keep calling it? I can't remember the word. I'm not gonna remember.
I can't remember.
But
Revisionist.
like revisionist history. Like, what if this disease, because we don't know a lot about it, what if this is actually happening to them? Like, what if they are actually living all of their lives at the same time, and we're the ones who are wrong, and they're the ones who aren't confused? They're actually going through all of that, and they're actually experiencing that in real time. And that's how the original idea came to be, of like, what if this is more like a superpower? What if this is a thing, they're tapping into something we have no
Right, they're
way
becoming
of knowing
untethered from our linear experience of
of
living lives, and
time.
we are
Yeah.
primitive. But that's really good to hear regarding the first scene, because I think we wanted to explore how we don't know so much about our own brains and how they operate. And with as much research as there is about this disease and other diseases like it, it's still like the jury's out. What is the right attitude? Are you supposed to correct people? Are you supposed to entertain all these other fantasies? There's a selfish thing going on of like, well, I'm blue. What about me? I'm a family member who's coping with this, and I'm just supposed to ignore that this is not my experience. It's like this painful but also funny thing.
And what was
of
great
like
about
people bumbling.
Yeah. And what was
I love when people bumble. When I think,
But I think the
it
correction,
always leads to
yeah,
storytelling.
the correction is not being mean. It's an act of love because the other person is caring about that person so much. And they're afraid that if they entertain the crazy stories, that they're afraid that those crazy stories some way are going to stick and then erase what the true reality is. Look,
they're
my
gonna lose them.
doctorate,
Yeah.
my doctorate degree was in brain nutrition.
Wow.
And so when I saw this film, I studied it a little differently than probably most people. And that's why this opening scene, even though it was funny, there is some underlying seriousness to it for those that watch it, because everything that you showed was absolutely 110% correct. And I noticed this throughout the film. And I think one of the funny scenes that there's two funny scenes that I really liked. It was the Rambo type scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then I loved where you had the artist painting. I just thought that was funny because that one guy goes, 7 hours?
7 hour curtains.
7 hour curtains.
7 hour curtains.
Yeah, and I really thought, I really loved those two scenes. But then you had the scene where she's sitting at the piano. And this is one that I really concentrated on because you could have gone two ways with this. Because by incorporating all the elements of someone with Alzheimer's, and then you have Nellie at the piano, the common reaction was from the teacher. I guess I would call him the teacher. He yells at her like she's deaf. And Alzheimer's patients aren't deaf. And it's almost like the yelling, they believe that they're going to trigger them to think correctly. And it's a stupid move.
Yeah, it
It's
reminds
really
me. We always talk
unsophisticated.
about the humor of people who, when they talk to someone who speak a different language, they just talk louder, or when
Like that's gonna work.
like that's gonna help, like that's gonna communicate something.
Yeah.
And then I think when people have Alzheimer's, there's also this feeling of they think that they're invalids, like that they're not able to communicate or have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that conversation is a little different, and it's whether you're willing to play along or not. And I mean, Chris O'Neill, who's actually he was in the Book of Mormon, who played the doctor, who his name in the film is Dr. Holden Schwantz, but that name did not end up getting put.
We wanted a German doctor. Yeah.
But yeah, he really, I think, did a great job of showing that even though he's this doctor and has knowledge, he's not, maybe his bedside manner is not the right.
But this was the interesting part. She's sitting at the piano, and he's like, I'm going to show y'all something amazing. Watch what she is about to do. I expected for her to come and do this amazing piece, and I'll tell you why. Because I expected it, because I have interviewed people, and famous ones. I should say I've interviewed the loved ones of the famous who had dementia or had Alzheimer's, who were top recording artists. The very last skill that an Alzheimer's patient loses if they have had a very big, strong musical background, it's the musical talent is the last to go. Because the music, a lot of people don't realize, when you're a musician, and if you know how to read music, great. If you know how to play, great, because it's all hand, eye, and brain coordination, and music alone creates new brain pathways. So I'm sitting there watching this scene and I'm like, okay, which way is she going to go? But she showed her frustration because right then and there, her mental lapse happened. So you play with her mental lapse, and she just beat the living hell out of those keys, which was really funny because I kept thinking, she could have pulled off a freaking Mozart piece right here and just wowed everybody and then go into a mental lapse and completely mess it up. But you went with a total mess up and mental lapse. But because, again, brilliant writing, but you could have gone your way.
You want her to
Thanks.
fail.
Well,
You're like a good train wreck.
There's this great YouTube video of this guy who we were doing a lot of research when we were making this film, and there's this guy who has Alzheimer's and was unable to speak at this point, but the only thing he could do was play the song he wrote for his wife like 30 years before. And it was just kind of stuck in his head, and every time he'd get to a piano he'd play that song. And that's kind of where the inspiration came from, where we were like, we know that this is a different part of the brain, and that this part of the brain, they're able to do something, they're able to continue that skill. So we wanted to kind of highlight that, but then also, if we're living in the world of this, she's moving through different dimensions. This Nellie maybe never learned the piano, but she's getting stuck in a world that she did. Right. And that was kind of where we came up with the idea of like, this Nellie doesn't know how to play, so she's just gonna kind of screw and mess with this guy.
Because of all the different twists and turns in the plot and the variety of scenes that you're exposed to, we felt pretty adamant about having our protagonist, our main character, be consistent. That our consistent protagonist is showing up in these different scenarios. We're surrounded by these different characters. So it's how the Nellie that we know and hopefully love responds to these various challenges that are coming at her. Is she going to resist? Is she going to embrace? Is she going to pretend like she knows what's going on? Is she going to reject it entirely? There's a whole variety of ways that Nellie conducts herself.
That was the coolest part about watching Caroline in her process of she was very adamant about, when I'm in a new dimension, I need to look at my clothes. I need to look at my surroundings. I need to realize that I'm in a new space. And so every time when we call action, we gave her a good 5 minutes to like really take it all in before she'd start the scene, so that she could experience that feeling of, I've been dropped into something new, and now how do I respond to it?
And she did. And that's the thing that I noticed with Caroline. It wasn't just the dialogue. It was, you could, just by watching her, you could tell she was thinking. It was her facial expressions. Even her facial expressions when she had no clue what was going on, or the memory space was empty. Yeah. And she showed every element that I could find, every emotion. She showed the mental lapses, the distorted memories, struggles to remember when they're lucid enough to know that they have dementia. And that was and that goes towards that scene with Bill towards the end. She knows, but you showed something that was really heartfelt. And that's when a dementia patient gets to the point and they're afraid that they're going to hurt their loved one's feelings by not remembering them. And that's when the loved ones step up and go, I'm going to remember for both of us.
Right. And I think that's a testament to both our actors, but with Caroline, she made it very clear from the beginning. She's like, yes, this is a comedy, but I want to do justice to this thing. I don't want to just make fun of it. It's not making fun of it. It's how do I actually portray someone who's dealing with this?
It's an exploration. We're not here to belittle anybody's experience who, has anything to do with this illness, with a similar illness. Ultimately, I think why Caroline decided to do this was, yes, the writing, maybe the opportunity. But I think she is dealing with a close loved one who she sees slipping away as well, I think, from Alzheimer's, and is wanting to do justice. So that performance that you saw that's getting all this acclaim, she's getting nominated for acting awards in these festivals, which is thrilling for us to see, is because the best comedies are ones you take really seriously. You're not playing the joke.
You're not playing the
You're
joke,
playing the
yeah.
truth.
And the truth is funny.
She was really
Yes.
occupied with getting to the bottom of that.
And you did. And you did, all of you, I mean, all four of you, of course, all the actors, everybody on this project. This is a brilliant, stellar short film that was able to tackle a very difficult topic and do it with comedy and do it with grace.
Wow,
And
thank you.
when Nellie says, "What happens when I start to forget this?" and Lou says it's okay, you know, that brought the whole film together. And again, like I said, it just leaves you just having this feeling of warmth and love, and that's what this film did. And the the bright light on this film is that those that are caregivers, they're going to understand this film and they're going to thank you for this film.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so
that's
much.
really sweet
You just
to
like
hear.
made my
I
Wednesday.
know. I'm getting teary-eyed. I just have
It's-
to say, it was such a special experience to the four of us get to sit in on the rehearsal of that scene
Oh my God.
between Bill and Caroline, to come from the
These
first
like
scene
phenoms.
where Bill is playing a version of this character who's fed up, who's disdainful, who is so burdened by losing his wife in this way. And Nellie's whole pursuit of this film is to find the right Lou. And as she tumbles through the continuum of versions of her life down the rabbit hole, as you said, we have to give the audience that respite, that kind of catharsis of getting a glimpse of the right Lou. So getting to rehearse that scene with them was such a special and surreal experience to see that come to life in a way that surpassed my expectations.
And I don't even
wanna
think
speak
that's
for you.
writing, that's them. I mean, that seeing them do that, I think, is what makes the film, and just their love for each other and their connection and their willingness to, they're like, we need to get this right. Like, this is important to get this right. And Bill is such an awesome human being, and he just gave Caroline so much space. He's like the world's best supporting actor because he allowed her the space to do it, and then he was just there to support. And really, he had all these theories which were great of, you know, I think that Lou really gets that she's going through all of this, and he really believes that she's going through different dimensions, and this Lou wants her to enjoy that process, and he wants to be part of that. And just it gets me every time when he says, let's say, for the sake of romanticism, let's say this is the first time we've had this conversation, because you think, you know, this guy has decided that anytime he does have his wife, he gets to enjoy whatever moment he has with her, and
because that moment is only going to be remembered at that moment.
It's fleeting.
Because she could forget it 10 minutes later. So like
Exactly.
he says, we'll just pretend it's the first time. And he'll be pretending it's the first time all the time. And that was just truth into that whole scene. But what has been the overall audience's reaction to this film?
I will say this is our first time doing the festival circuit. We've never done this before. We've mostly worked with television and the digital space, so this is it's a really cool experience. It's a little anxiety ridden to watch people watch your film, I will say, as live performers. Like, we can alter and change how the performance is going, but with a film, it's just there. You're either gonna like it or you're not.
And not just there, all of these festivals, the programmers, for some reason, coincidentally, decide to put forth Dementia at the end of whatever block it's a part of, as like the finale, as like the anchor, as like the last impression you're going to get from a given block of films. I'm not exactly sure what that's about, maybe because it feels like an epic, a 15, 16-minute epic.
But I've heard that, like what you were saying, you watched it a couple times. It is one of those films that I think you have to watch over and over again.
Yeah.
It's hard to only watch it once. So I think when people go to the festivals and they see it once, they're impressed with what it all is, but they don't know exactly what it is. It's that like second or third watch that everyone's like, wow, there's something here. And through the festival process, you end up communicating and talking to a lot of people who've gone to these festivals and sending your film. And that's been the coolest part, is getting the feedback back of people who've said, you hit the right humor tone. And most, I would say 95% of the people that we contact usually come back with us with, I've had a loved one who's experienced this. My mother just passed from this. My grandmother just passed from this. And that's the most gratifying, is knowing that we did it justice to those people.
Yeah.
And on a level, it's comforting. And I think ultimately that's what entertainment, one of the most fundamental things about entertainment, about comedy really, is comfort, is to be able to divert, is to be able to lift up from something dismal, from something burdensome. So
yeah. And I will tell you this, and I've talked to others. If your film is shown last at a festival, like in a block, be very, very thankful, because I always believe the last thing people see is the last thing they remember. No pun intended.
Full circle. Very nice word. Whether that was intentional or not.
No, that was not intentional. That just came out. But no, seriously, I would rather go last at a festival in a block for that very reason. And I have seen films that were shown last that ended up winning. Mm-hmm. Because the voters will always remember the last thing seen. And so it's like at a festival. Do not put me first. Do not put me first, because to me that's an injustice. And because I know of one, I'm not going to mention the names of the films, but I know of one block where the first film was great, the second film was not, and then the last film was amazing. And to have that downturn between, I think, hurt the one in the front.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's the same thing with live comedy. That's really our bread and butter. I mean, we do so much sketch comedy in these theaters that you mentioned, and you organize a set list the exact same way. You could put some stinkers in the middle.
You put the stinkers in the middle.
The stinkers in the middle. And then
you gotta end strong, start strong.
You gotta start strong and end strong. Those are the rules. There's not many rules.
Slot two is the tough one. Slot two, it's gotta be good.
Yeah, one's gotta be a great attention getter. Two's gotta be solid. Three is probably the most impressive, and then some stinkers. And then a really good finale. Yeah.
Well, this is an amazing film. And ladies and gentlemen, the short film Fourth Dementia is in this multiverse comedy about Alzheimer's. Nellie, the lead character, travels through alternate dimensions in search of her husband. Now, this film breaks comedy out of the politically correct box that we have placed comedy in. We need to learn to laugh. And how to laugh at life's, most challenging situations. Laughter is the best medicine, and we can't keep that type of medicine locked away. And Fourth Dementia is a wonderful, brilliant, stellar film from, very high quality in the cinematography, stellar acting that creates a mixture of emotions in the audience, from laughter to sadness and a warm, fuzzy feeling that we all want to have. Now, we have to learn to laugh in the face of many challenges, or we'll go crazy. No pun intended. But Fourth Dementia is not only a film worth seeing, it's worth remembering. And I want to thank you, Allie and Jake, for sharing this great film with me today.
Thank you, Ward.
This was so lovely. Thank you. We had such a great time.
That's it?
I think that's it. Now, you've got to show us that cute little dog in your lap. We got to see his pretty little face. And I know he's not feeling very well.
This guy on my lap the whole time. Here's Marty.
Who was in an earlier version of the film as the talking dog,
but he was cut for time and maybe for randomness, like it didn't serve the story.
His
but
name was Mr. Squidgems. He didn't make the cut.
Introducing Marty as Mr. Squidgems. But
Next time.
Cutting
The
room
TV
floor
series.
for the series. There you go.
Well, he needs his own series, but again, I want to thank you so much for sharing this amazing film. And ladies and gentlemen, if you visit any of the film festivals around the country and Fourth Dementia showing, make sure you're sitting in the theater to see this amazing work of comedy art, taking on the challenge of one of the most, I don't know, difficult or dangerous topics we can even talk about, which is Alzheimer's. But they did it with amazing comedy and grace, and that's what we want to see more of. And as for me, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching. I'll either see you at the movies or from the red carpet.